I stare at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, mascara streaking down my cheeks, and I can't help but laugh at the irony. You know that moment when a stupid joke turns your whole life upside down? Yeah, that's where I am right now. I'm Sarah, I'm 28, and 3 days ago I made the dumbest mistake of my life. I didn't mean to say it, not really. It was just another one of those casual dinner parties we have every month with Mike and his best friend James. The wine was flowing, we were all laughing, and somehow I thought it would be funny to say it. You know what's hilarious? I'd said, my wine glass dangling between my fingers. I probably should have married James instead. The words just slipped out, like most stupid things do when you've had too much wine. I remember the way the room went silent, how James nearly choked on his drink, and how God, Mike's face. I've never seen him look at me that way before. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is what happened after, what Mike told me before he walked out, and why I'm now sitting here wondering if I've completely destroyed the one thing in my life I never thought I could lose. The thing is, I didn't think Mike would take it so personally. He's always been the calm one, the one who laughs off my jokes, no matter how far I push them. But something was different this time. Maybe it was the way I said it. Or maybe it was because James was sitting right there, looking as uncomfortable as I've ever seen him. Or maybe it was because deep down, Mike knew there was a tiny grain of truth in what I said. Not that I actually wanted James. God, no. But there was something else. Something I didn't understand until it was too late. I splash water on my face, trying to wash away the mess I've made, but I can't stop thinking about the text message I just got from James. He never texts me when Mike's not around. Never. But what he just told me, I think I finally understand why my joke hit harder than any fight we've ever had. I keep reading James's text over and over, my hands shaking slightly. Mike told me about the college thing. I never knew. We need to talk. The college thing. Those 3 words make my stomach turn because I know exactly what Mike must have told him. It's something I'd buried so deep I almost convinced myself it never happened. Almost. I slide down to sit on the bathroom floor, my back against the cold tile wall, and let my mind drift back to that night in our senior year. James had just broken up with his girlfriend, and we'd all gone out to cheer him up. Mike had food poisoning and couldn't make it, so it was just me and James and a few other friends. We'd ended up talking for hours after everyone else left, and there was this moment. This tiny, stupid moment where something shifted. James had looked at me differently, and I'd felt something I shouldn't have. Nothing happened, we both knew better. But for weeks after, there was this weird tension that we never talked about. Mike never knew. Or at least, I thought he never knew. But now I'm wondering if he saw more than I realized. If maybe that's why my stupid joke at dinner hit him so hard. Because it wasn't just a joke to him. It was confirmation of something he'd suspected for years. I pull out my phone and scroll through my recent calls. 17 missed calls from Mike in the past 3 days. Not a single text. That's how I know this is different. Mike always texts. He's the king of "we need to talk" messages. But this silence, this complete radio silence after he walked out, it terrifies me. "I can't do this anymore, Sarah," he'd said before he left. His voice so quiet I barely heard him. "I can't keep pretending that these jokes of yours don't mean anything. Not after what you just said. Not in front of him." I want to call him again, to explain that it didn't mean anything, that James was never. But my fingers freeze over his number when I remember the last thing Mike said before he walked out. The thing that makes me wonder if maybe I've been lying to myself all along. You don't joke about things you don't think about, Sarah. That's what Mike had said, his last words before the door closed. And God, they've been echoing in my head ever since, bouncing around like a pinball, hitting every nerve, every memory I've tried to ignore. Maybe he's right. Maybe that's why I feel so sick right now, sitting here on this cold bathroom floor, reading James's text for the 100th time. I drag myself up and walk to the kitchen, needing something stronger than wine this time. The house feels wrong. Too quiet. Too empty. Mike's coffee mug is still sitting on the counter where he left it 3 days ago, and I can't bring myself to move it. Moving it would make this real. Would mean admitting that he's really gone. My phone buzzes again. James. Sarah, we really need to talk about this. Mike's at my place. My heart stops. Of all the places Mike could have gone, he chose James's apartment. The irony would be funny if it didn't hurt so much. I type out a response. Delete it. Type again. What am I supposed to say? Sorry I joked about marrying you in front of my husband, who apparently knows about that weird moment we had in college. The truth is, I'm not even sure why I said it. Maybe it was the wine, or maybe it was the way James was talking about his new promotion, looking all successful and put together. Or maybe it was because lately, Mike and I had been different. Not bad different, just comfortable. Too comfortable. The kind of comfortable that makes you wonder what other lives you could have lived. But now, staring at my phone, at James's text, I remember something else from that dinner. Something I'd missed in the chaos of Mike leaving. The way James had looked at me after I made that joke. Not with amusement or awkwardness, but with something like disappointment. Like he knew I'd just ruined something I couldn't fix. My phone buzzes one more time. It's a longer message from James, and the first line makes my blood run cold. Mike told me he found your old diary. The diary. My old black leather journal from college, the one I thought I'd lost during our last move. The one I'd written in during those confusing weeks after that night with James, trying to sort out feelings I had no business feeling. My hands are shaking so badly I can barely hold my phone. How long has Mike known about it? How long has he been carrying that knowledge around, pretending everything was fine? I force myself to look at the rest of James's message. He found it months ago, Sarah, behind some boxes in the garage. He read about that night at Murphy's bar, about our talk. He read everything. Everything. The word hits me like a punch to the gut. I remember what I wrote in that diary. Not just about that night, but about the weeks after. About how James made me laugh in ways Mike didn't. About how sometimes I'd catch myself wondering, what if? Stupid, fleeting thoughts that should have stayed buried in those pages. I slide down to sit on the kitchen floor, my back against the cabinets. The coffee mug on the counter seems to mock me now. All those months, Mike had known. He'd read my confused 21-year-old ramblings and said nothing. He'd welcomed James into our home, hosted those monthly dinners, laughed and joked like everything was fine. And then I had to go in and make that stupid joke, like I was twisting the knife I didn't even know I'd planted. My phone lights up again. Another text from James. There's something else you need to know, about why Mike's really here. But before I can read the rest, another message pops up. This one from Mike, the first contact in 3 days. We need to talk, not about the joke, about what you wrote on the last page. The last page? I rack my brain, trying to remember what I could have written there that would matter now, years later. Then it hits me. The promise I made to myself. The one I'd completely forgotten about until this moment. The words come rushing back, and suddenly I understand why Mike can't let this go. I'm digging through boxes in the garage like a madwoman, dust coating my clothes, spiderwebs catching in my hair. I need to find that diary. Need to see those words for myself. Because what I think I remember, what I think I wrote, it can't be what Mike read. It just can't be. My phone keeps buzzing. James. Mike. Even my sister now. I ignore them all. The only thing that matters is finding that diary, proving to myself that my memory is wrong. But deep down, in that honest place I try so hard to avoid, I know exactly what I wrote on that last page. I wrote it the day before Mike proposed, sitting in my dorm room, trying to convince myself I was ready for forever. If I say yes to Mike, I'd written, I have to be sure. Have to be certain I'm not settling, not choosing safe over real. Have to be sure I'm not secretly hoping James will give me a reason to say no. The words make me sick now, because I did say yes to Mike. I said yes, and I meant it. At least I thought I meant it. But I'd written those words, hadn't I? Put that doubt on paper where it could fester for years until Mike found it. And now, with that stupid joke at dinner, I'd proven that maybe some part of me had been settling all along. My fingers brush against something leather-bound, tucked behind an old Christmas decoration box. The diary. But as I pull it out, my phone buzzes again with a message that changes everything. It's from James's wife, Emily. Wait, James's wife? My brain stutters over this detail because I realize something I should have noticed days ago. Something that makes me question everything I thought I knew about that dinner party, about Mike's reaction, about why James looked so disappointed when I made that joke. Emily wasn't at dinner that night. She was supposed to be, but she wasn't. And suddenly I remember why. Remember the secret James had sworn us to just before I made my stupid joke? The secret that makes my thoughtless words so much worse than I realized. I sink to the garage floor, the diary clutched in one hand, my phone in the other. Emily's message glows on the screen. I hope you're happy now. James told me about your joke, right after he told us all he has cancer. The words blur as tears fill my eyes. That's what James had announced at dinner, right before my stupid mouth ran away with me. Stage 2 lymphoma. He'd been so brave about it, trying to make it sound less scary than it was, telling us how treatable it is these days. Mike had been squeezing my hand under the table, both of us processing the news. And then, like some kind of emotional wrecking ball, I'd made that joke about marrying James instead. Now I understand the look on Mike's face. It wasn't just about my old diary or some long ago feelings. It was about me taking one of the hardest moments in his best friend's life and making it about me. About my stupid, thoughtless attempt at humor while James was sitting there, having just told us he was fighting for his life. Another text comes through, this one from Mike. Do you know what James said to me after you made that joke? After you went to the kitchen for more wine? He apologized to me, Sarah. Said he was sorry if he'd ever given you reason to think there was something there. His wife had just left in tears. He'd just told us about the cancer, and he was apologizing to me. I feel like I'm going to be sick. The diary falls from my hand. Years of confused young adult feelings spilling onto the concrete floor. But those feelings don't matter anymore. They haven't mattered for years. What matters is the man I married, the one who stood by me through everything, watching me humiliate him and his best friend in what should have been a moment of support and friendship. My phone buzzes one more time. It's James again. Sarah, Mike needs to tell you something. Something about what he did the day he found your diary. The garage suddenly feels too small, too cluttered with the physical debris of our life together. My fingers trace the diary's worn cover as I open James's message. The day Mike found your diary, he came to my office. He brought the diary with him, said he needed to know if there was ever anything real between us. I close my eyes, imagining Mike, my steady, patient Mike, feeling so shaken he had to ask his best friend that question. But it's James's next message that breaks me. I told him the truth, Sarah, about how that night in college I went home and called him. Told him I thought you might be confused about your feelings, that he needed to make sure you were choosing him for the right reasons. He said he trusted you to know your heart. That's who Mike is, who he's always been. All this time, they'd both known. Not just about my confused feelings back then, but about how James had actually been the one to push Mike to be sure about me. And what had I done with that trust? Made it into a joke. Treated it like it meant nothing. My phone keeps buzzing with messages, but I can only stare at the last one from Mike. I didn't stay with James after I left. I've been at my mom's, trying to figure out when we stopped being real with each other. When you stopped seeing me. The truth hits me like a physical blow. Mike has never been the safe choice. He's been the one person who saw all my chaos, all my impulsive decisions, all my thoughtless moments, and chose to love me anyway. He was never settling for me. I was the one treating him like he was somehow less than what I deserved. I'm about to call him when one final message comes through. From Mike again. I found something else in the garage while packing some things. Something that made me realize maybe we're both. The something else turns out to be a stack of Post-it notes. Dozens of them, all in my handwriting, collected over years. Little notes I'd left in Mike's lunch on the bathroom mirror stuck to his laptop. You make me feel safe. Thanks for loving my crazy. I'd choose you every time. Looking at them now, spread out on the garage floor next to my old diary, I finally understand. These weren't just cute notes. They were promises. Promises I'd forgotten I meant. I pick up my phone with shaking hands and type, I really did mean those notes. Every single one. His response comes faster than I expect. I know. That's why this hurts so much. Can we talk? Really talk? I ask. About. I take a deep breath and write the truest thing I've said in years. About how I got so caught up in looking for what might have been that I stopped seeing what I actually have. About how you've never been the safe choice. You've been the brave one, loving someone who keeps forgetting to love you back. The three dots appear and disappear several times before his response comes. Come to my mom's. And Sarah, bring those post-it notes. Maybe some things break so we can finally see what we had all along. And maybe sometimes we make stupid jokes about what could have been because we're too scared to face how lucky we are with what is. I gather the post-it notes, leave the diary in the garage where it belongs, and head to my car. I don't know if Mike and I can fix this, but for the first time in a long time, I know what I'm fighting for. And it was never about James or what ifs or paths not taken. It was always about the man who collected every little note I ever wrote him, even while reading a diary that must have broken his heart. If this story hit home for you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more real, raw stories about love, mistakes, and second chances. Every other day, we dive deep into the moments that make us question everything and sometimes find our way back to what matters most. Drop a comment below if you've ever had a moment that made you realize what you almost lost. Sometimes the hardest stories are the ones we need to hear the most.